I started seeing Dr. Evelyn March 3 months ago after my fiancé, Caleb, died in a car accident. Everyone told me therapy would help. My mother practically begged me to go. My best friend, Natalie, even made the appointment herself, saying I wasn't the same person anymore. They were right. I wasn't. The crash happened last winter, late at night on a 2-lane road just outside our town in Vermont. Caleb's truck hit black ice, spun out, and collided with a guardrail. He died instantly. I walked away with only a concussion and a broken wrist. Sometimes I think the universe picked the wrong person to save. For the first few weeks, I couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face that last moment, the sound of twisting metal, glass shattering, his hand slipping from mine. By the time I finally went to see Dr. March, I was barely functioning. Her office was calm and warm, with big windows overlooking a small garden and soft yellow lighting that made the room feel safe. She had this voice that made you want to tell her everything smooth, careful, and slightly distant, like she was both there and not there. The first session was the usual. She asked about my life, my work, how I was coping. She listened patiently, took notes, nodded at all the right moments. I remember feeling a tiny bit lighter afterward, like maybe this could actually help. But things started to feel strange during the second session. We were talking about guilt, how I blamed myself for Caleb's death when she said something that made me freeze. You said he was angry with you that night, before the accident. I frowned. I never told you that. She tilted her head, looking slightly surprised. You didn't? No. We weren't fighting. We were just driving home from dinner. She smiled softly, apologetically. Ah, of course. I must have been thinking of another patient. But her tone didn't sound like she believed that. At first, I brushed it off. Therapists see lots of people, right? Maybe she got mixed up. But over the next few sessions, it kept happening. One time, she asked, "Do you still have that old locket your grandmother gave you? The one you wore to Caleb's funeral?" I blinked at her. How do you know about that? She hesitated for just a second, just long enough for me to notice, then said, "You mentioned it in our first session." I hadn't. I was sure of it. After that, I started recording our sessions on my phone. Not secretly, I told her I wanted to review them later, which she agreed to. I never told her why I really wanted to. When I listened to them back, there was no mention of anything she'd supposedly remembered. No talk of the locket. No mention of a fight. It was as if those details had come out of nowhere. One evening, I decided to do a little digging. I googled Dr. Evelyn March Vermont, expecting the usual credentials, reviews, maybe a photo. But there was almost nothing. Just a sparse website with her name, office address, and an old headshot that looked slightly off. The background was blurry, like the image had been edited. There were no reviews. No mentions on psychology boards. Nothing on LinkedIn. The only thing I found was a 10-year-old news article buried deep online about a Dr. Evelyn Marsh, with an S, who'd lost her medical license after a patient's mysterious death in Massachusetts. The photo was grainy, but the resemblance was uncanny. I tried telling myself it was coincidence. Different spelling, different state. But something about her eyes, the calm, almost predatory focus, made my stomach twist. The next session, I decided to test her. Halfway through, I casually mentioned something that never happened, a story about how Caleb and I used to leave each other little notes in our lunch boxes. She smiled, said how sweet that was, and asked how long we'd done that. I made something up. She nodded, wrote it down. 2 weeks later, she brought it up again. You said Caleb's last note said "see you at home," right? That's when I knew. I'd never said those exact words. I had deliberately made up a version of the story to see if she'd repeat it. She didn't just remember, she elaborated. After the session, I sat in my car and listened to the audio. The original version had no mention of a note. None. So how did she know the phrase "see you at home"? That night, I barely slept. I kept pacing, replaying our sessions in my head. Every time she'd remembered something, it was something she shouldn't have known or something that hadn't even happened. At 3 a.m., I got up and poured a drink. The house was silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I caught my reflection in the dark window, pale, tired, eyes rimmed red, and suddenly, I saw movement behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But when I turned back, there was something written in the condensation on the glass, even though I hadn't touched it. 4 words. See you at home. I called Natalie the next morning, voice shaking. Nat, I think my therapist knows things she shouldn't. Like, personal things. Stuff about Caleb. She sighed. Bree, you've been under a lot of stress. Maybe you told her more than you realize. I didn't, I said. I recorded it. It's not there. Maybe she's researching you online. I barely have social media, I said. And she knows things that were private, like stuff that happened the night he died. There was a pause. Then Natalie said carefully, Bree, you've been blaming yourself. Sometimes our minds. I'm not imagining this. I snapped, louder than I meant to. She went quiet. Okay, she said finally. Then maybe just stop seeing her. I already booked my next session. Then record it again. Bring me the file. I'll listen. That gave me a strange sense of comfort. Like if someone else heard it, it would make it real, prove I wasn't losing my mind. When I showed up for my next appointment, something about the office felt different. The garden outside looked wrong somehow. The trees seemed closer to the window than before, their branches almost brushing the glass. Dr. March greeted me with her usual calm smile. But when I sat down, she didn't start the session right away. Instead, she said, You seem frightened today. I'm fine, I lied. She smiled faintly. You've been dreaming about the accident again, haven't you? My chest tightened. I hadn't told her about the dreams. How do you know that? I asked quietly. Her smile didn't fade. You mentioned it last week. I didn't have that dream last week. Her eyes held mine, calm and unwavering. Are you sure? That's when I noticed something strange. Her reflection in the window behind her didn't move when she did. I blinked, thinking it was a trick of light. But when she turned her head, the reflection stayed facing forward. For the rest of that session, I could barely focus on anything she said. When it ended, I left so fast I forgot my coat. That night, I listened to the new recording. The first 20 minutes were normal questions, answers, small talk. Then, right around the time I'd noticed her reflection, there was interference. Static. Then, faintly, under the hiss, a whispering voice. I replayed it over and over, turning the volume up. It wasn't her voice. It wasn't mine either. It said, You shouldn't have survived. I didn't go back to Dr. March's office for almost 2 weeks. I told her I was traveling, that I needed time to process things. In reality, I couldn't even drive past the street where her building sat without my hands shaking. But the longer I avoided her, the stranger things started to get. The first incident happened at home. I'd set my phone to charge overnight, same as always. When I woke up, it was open to the voice memos app and one of my recordings from therapy was playing. I hadn't opened it. What chilled me wasn't that it was playing, it was the timestamp. The playback had started at the exact moment, down to the second, when she had said the words, You shouldn't have survived. I deleted every file. Every recording. Every folder that had anything to do with her. But later that night, when I opened my laptop, the same file was back. The system name had changed. Instead of session_06.m4a, it was labeled seeyouathome.mp3. I didn't even listen. I just shut the lid and unplugged the machine. That weekend, I stayed with Natalie. I told her everything, the recordings, the reflections, the messages. She listened quietly, her expression somewhere between disbelief and concern. Bree, she said finally, you need to talk to someone else. A real therapist. Maybe report her to the board. I don't even know if she's licensed, I said. I can't find any record of her. Then go to the police. And tell them what? That my therapist somehow knows about my dead fiancé and talks to me through my phone. She looked down, sighed. You sound paranoid, Bree. I'm not, I stopped myself, realizing how crazy it all sounded. I'm scared, Nat. I can feel her watching me. Sometimes when I'm home alone, I swear I smell her perfume, that faint rose scent she wears. Natalie didn't say anything for a while. Then she squeezed my hand. You can stay here as long as you want. I did. For 3 days. And for a while, things actually felt normal again. We watched movies, cooked, tried to laugh like old times. But on the third night, Natalie woke me around 2 a.m., her voice trembling. "Bree, someone's outside." I sat up instantly. Through her window, we could see the driveway faint light from the porch lamp cutting through the dark. A tall, slender silhouette was standing at the end of the drive. I grabbed my phone, called 911. By the time the cops arrived, whoever it was had vanished. They searched the property and found nothing. But one of the officers, an older guy with a flashlight, pointed to something in the dirt near the end of the driveway. It was a footprint. A woman's heel. After that, Natalie didn't want me staying there anymore. I couldn't blame her. So I went back home, double-locked everything, and started looking into Dr. March again. I went beyond Google this time: county license databases, old hospital registries, archived news. That's when I found something that made my blood run cold. A digitized newspaper clipping from 1978, over 40 years ago. Local psychiatrist found dead alongside patient after house fire in rural Massachusetts. The victims were identified as Dr. Evelyn Marsh, 43, and 29-year-old patient, name withheld. Authorities suspect the fire began in the basement office during a therapy session. There was a grainy photo. I zoomed in. Same sharp jawline. Same soft eyes. It looked exactly like my therapist, maybe younger, but unmistakable. That couldn't be right. The Dr. March I knew was maybe in her 40s. Not someone who'd have been an adult in 1978. I sat there for hours, staring at the screen, feeling like my sanity was splintering. The next day, I drove to her office building, determined to confront her, or at least, to make sure she was real. When I got there, the glass door had a new name on it: Dr. Lydia Crane, Psychiatric Services. I stepped inside, confused. The receptionist looked up with a polite smile. "Hi, I'm looking for Dr. March." Her expression turned puzzled. "I'm sorry, who?" "Dr. Evelyn March. She used to have her practice here." "There's never been a Dr. March in this suite," she said, frowning. "Dr. Crane's been here 5 years." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. "That's not possible. I've been coming here for months. Her office is right down that hall, the one with the yellow rug and the garden view." The receptionist gave me a strange look. "Ma'am, there's no garden view. That office faces the parking lot." I brushed past her and walked down the hall. The layout was different. The hallway seemed shorter. The door I always entered through, the one with the frosted glass and brass handle, wasn't there. Just a blank wall. "Ma'am, you can't go back there." I turned around slowly, heart pounding. "What's going on here?" She shook her head, backing away slightly. "Are you sure you're in the right building?" I left before she could call security. When I got home, I sat in the car for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel. My breathing felt shallow. I couldn't tell if I was losing my mind or if something was genuinely impossible happening. When I finally went inside, my answering machine light was blinking. One new message. I pressed play. "Hello, Bree. It's Evelyn. I'm so sorry you couldn't find me today. My throat went dry. I moved my office. I thought I told you. Don't worry, we'll have our next session soon. I've missed you." There was a long pause, then her voice dropped to a whisper. "You can't run from me, Bree. I know you too well." Click. I deleted the message instantly. But the silence that followed was suffocating. That night, I barely slept. Every sound in the house felt amplified: the hum of the fridge, the creak of wood, my own breathing. Around 4 a.m., I heard a soft knock at the door. 3 times. Slow. Deliberate. I didn't move. I just sat up in bed, frozen. The knocking came again. When I finally got the courage to look through the peephole, no one was there. But on the porch, right at the edge of the welcome mat, sat a single audio cassette tape. No label. Just black plastic. I don't even own a cassette player, but curiosity won. The next morning, I drove to a thrift shop, bought an old player, and brought it home. When I pressed play, the tape hissed for a few seconds. Then came that same calm, familiar voice. "Today, we're going to talk about guilt, Bree. I want you to go back to that night. The night of the accident." I froze. "Do you remember what you said to him right before it happened?" My breath caught. "You told him to slow down." But he didn't listen. You grabbed his arm. You shouted. And when he turned to look at you, he took his eyes off the road. I felt tears sting my eyes. Stop, I whispered. You killed him, Bree. Not the ice. Not fate. You. The tape clicked off. I sat there for a long time, shaking, the silence pressing against my skull. Then, from behind me, in a voice that wasn't from the tape but from inside the room, I heard. Finally, you remember. I turned around. There, standing in the corner of my living room wearing the same charcoal blazer, same soft smile, was Dr. Evelyn March. She looked exactly as she had the last time I saw her. But there was something off about her eyes, too dark, too still, like they were reflecting a void. I blinked, and she was gone. The cassette tape on the table began to hiss again. See you at home. I didn't remember falling asleep that night. When I woke, the cassette tape was gone. I checked the table, the floor, even under the couch. It had vanished, like it had never been there. But that wasn't what scared me most. What scared me was the faint scent in the air, roses. Her perfume. The same one I swore I smelled the first time she mentioned Caleb's name. For hours, I sat in the living room trying to convince myself that I was hallucinating, that it was all grief, exhaustion, trauma, something logical. But my reflection in the TV screen looked like someone I didn't recognize anymore. Pale, hollow, eyes darting like a trapped animal. Around noon, I got a call from a number I didn't know. Against every instinct screaming "Don't answer," I picked it up. Bree, the voice said softly. It was her. Don't hang up. I know you've been frightened. But I need to show you the truth. What truth? I hissed. You're not even real. She chuckled faintly, that same low, composed laugh I used to hear in her office. I'm as real as the things you buried. You think therapy is about healing, but it's about remembering. You've spent your whole life forgetting. I don't want this anymore. I snapped. Leave me alone. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered. You came to me for help. And I'm not finished with you. Then she said something that made my blood freeze. Come back to the cabin. I felt my throat tighten. What cabin? But I already knew. The cabin in Vermont. The one Caleb and I rented the night he died. The night the car slid off the road and hit a tree. The night the fire started. And for the first time since that accident, I remembered something I'd buried so deep it felt like it belonged to someone else. Caleb hadn't died instantly. He'd been trapped in the car, the door jammed, smoke filling the air. I'd tried to pull him out, screaming, crying, the heat searing my arms. He looked at me just once and said something I'd never told anyone. Don't leave me. But I did. I ran. I'd told everyone I thought he was dead. But I hadn't checked. I hadn't stayed. I'd saved myself. And someone had watched me do it. The drive to Vermont felt like sleepwalking through a nightmare. The same winding forest road, the same whispering pines, the same turn that led to the old cabin now half collapsed and buried in snow. I parked the car and sat there for a long time, engine idling, heart thundering. Then I stepped out. The air was sharp, biting, utterly silent. Inside, the cabin smelled of ash and rot. The walls were blackened from fire, and the floor was littered with shards of glass. But on the table near the fireplace sat something clean, untouched, a tape recorder. A note lay beside it. Play me. My hands trembled as I pressed the button. The first sound was my own voice, sobbing. Then Caleb's faint, choked. Bree, please. Then another voice, calm, gentle, too familiar. Tell me, Bree. What did you do? It was her. Dr. March. You left him. Didn't you? You told him you loved him, and then you left. You ran. The recorder crackled, and I heard myself screaming, I didn't mean to. I was scared. You always run, her voice said. From guilt. From truth. From me. Then a pause. Do you remember now who called you that night? I frowned, confused. What? The woman who told you to come here in the first place. And suddenly, like someone had slammed open a door in my mind, it hit me. I hadn't found Dr. March through a referral. I hadn't Googled her, or been recommended by anyone. She had called me. Out of nowhere. The day after Caleb's funeral, I'd gotten a voicemail. Hi Bree, I'm Dr. Evelyn March. I specialize in trauma therapy. I think I can help you. At the time, I'd thought maybe the hospital gave her my number. But that wasn't true. No one knew how to reach me. I'd changed phones, changed addresses, moved cities. She'd found me anyway. The air in the cabin grew heavier, thicker. The temperature dropped until I could see my breath. Then the tape hissed again, and I heard her voice not through the recorder this time, but behind me. You came back, she said softly. I turned around. There she was, standing in the doorway, same charcoal blazer, same calm eyes, same impossible stillness. You're not real, I whispered. She smiled. Real is just what your mind allows. What are you? She stepped closer. Her skin looked too pale, like porcelain. Her movements were smooth but wrong, like a puppet mimicking human grace. I'm your correction, Bree. The part of you that stayed behind when you ran. I stumbled back. No, that's not possible. You left him in the fire, she said. But I didn't. I stayed. And now? I'm all that's left. She raised her hand, and for a split second I saw flames flicker around her fingers. Her eyes shimmered orange, like the reflection of a burning car. I screamed and ran out the door, into the snow. The forest was darker than before, the trees closing in. Behind me, the cabin burst into light orange, violent, alive. Her voice echoed through the woods. You can't escape yourself, Bree. I ran until my lungs burned. I didn't look back. When I finally reached my car, I fumbled for the keys, crying, shaking. The moment I turned the ignition, the headlights illuminated something in front of me. Her. Standing in the beam, untouched by the snow, smiling. Drive safe, she said. You wouldn't want another accident. The car sputtered and died. The radio flickered to life on its own, tuning through static until her voice came through again. Therapy's about closure. Are you ready for yours? The windshield fogged up completely. I could barely see. Then, written across the glass from the inside as if by an invisible hand, appeared 5 words. You should have burned too. I screamed, kicked open the door, and ran into the woods. The next thing I remember is waking up in a hospital bed. A ranger had found me near the road at dawn, unconscious, barefoot, covered in ash. They told me the cabin burned completely that night. Nothing left but ashes and melted metal. No signs of anyone else being there. They said I was lucky to be alive. It's been 6 months now. I moved to another city. New apartment. New job. I'm trying to believe she's gone. That it was just trauma, grief, hallucination, whatever makes sense. But last night, as I was unpacking boxes, I found something inside one of them. A small black cassette tape. No label. And written in faint pen, across the plastic. Session 13, home visit. When I held it up, I swear, for just a second, I smelled roses.